When I went to Washington State, it was something different for me. I felt very welcome, and I felt at home.
You can go to one of these football factories, and you can just be another cog in the machine, or you can come to Pullman and we can really change things. And we did.
When you're 18, you make a decision on what your identity is going to be the rest of your life. I chose to be a Cougar.
On the plains of Pullman sits Washington State University, a school known for producing giants of industry, media, and even entertainment. It's one of the most fertile regions in the United States. But crops aren't the only product growing from the soil of the mighty Palouse. Since 1894, one of Washington State's finer exports has been football players. From All-Americans to first-round draft picks to Hall of Famers, this university has left a mighty imprint on the college football landscape, which explains Coach Mike Leach's answer to this question.
Why Washington State? Well, that's a stupid question.
Figuring out the 12 greatest Cougar gridiron legends of all time is a tough task. But with the help of former players, coaches, and media members, we've finally compiled our list of the 12 greatest Washington State football players. Most people don't believe in ghosts, but ask any Cougar fan and they'll say that they believe. In fact, they'll probably tell you they saw one every Saturday in the fall. Our number 12 player may not have been a supernatural being, but on the football field, he haunted Pac-10 defenders every time he touched the ball.
Number 12, Jerome Harrison.
By the time he graduated, we called him the Ghost, right? Because nobody could touch him. Didn't matter, practice, game, walkthrough. I mean, he was always the most competitive guy out there. And for a smaller stature back, that's what you have to have.
Harrison dances at the goal line, and he's in there. Touchdown.
The third to last game of the year against UCLA, he goes off for 247 yards and 3 touchdowns. Just torches the Bruins. And everybody's like, Jerome Harrison, who's this guy? This is terrific.
UCLA fans had nightmares of the Ghost in 2004. And by the following season, the rest of the conference did as well.
He was quoted as saying something like he would consider a good year if he gained 2,000 yards. I'm thinking, oh, right, sure. You know. Lo and behold, he went out and gained 1,900 yards that year.
Harrison's 1,900-yard season in 2005 earned him an All-American selection and a top 10 finish in the Heisman Trophy race. While Jerome Harrison's nickname, the Ghost, is certainly one of the most popular in Wazoo history, he's not the first Cougar legend with his own moniker. That honor belongs to our number 11 player, who earned his nickname in the 1930s, the Escondido Express.
Number 11, Ed Goddard.
You talk about the great quarterbacks at WSU, right? Leaf and Bledsoe and Thompson and Gesser. Goddard was a 3-time All-American quarterback.
He played in the single wing in those days, and so he didn't call the signals. He lined up more like a halfback or tailback, but he was an incredible football player.
Ed Goddard may not have been a true quarterback, but the Escondido, California native did it all for the Cougars from 1934 to 1936. In a game against USC, an LA Times reporter watched Goddard run, pass, and punt all over the Trojans. From there, the nickname the Escondido Express was born.
During his Washington State career, he accounted for 63% of Washington State's touchdowns, either running or passing. And none of the other Cougar quarterbacks can touch that.
Goddard was named first-team All-American at quarterback for 3 straight years and went on to serve his country in World War II.
Number 10, Ryan Long.
The manimal, like part man, part animal. And that guy, I mean, he was unblockable.
Oh, they get right to him off the snap. Untouched that time, Long.
The one play that stands out in my mind, I think his signature sack was against Carson Palmer in a USC game, where he hits him and Carson's helmet pops off.
Palmer has been bootlegging all day, and he's under pressure and dropped.
Oh yeah, he looked like a Rock'em Sock'em robot guy.
Ryan Long, as Palmer, a little dazed, gets back up off the turf.
Our whole entire defensive line was a party at the quarterback, and he led the charge.
Chase dropped by Long.
Ryan Long just man against boy there.
He hit you and the sound that it made was different. You knew it was Ryan Long to hit you because he had that impact on people.
Nicknamed the Caveman, defensive end Ryan Long became Washington State's first Outland Trophy winner in 2002 and earned All-American honors along the way.
He was just relentless on the field. Give me the double team. You guys can go free. I'll beat these two guys. I don't care. And he did it time and time again.
Ryan Long may have given opposing quarterbacks fits, but if there was one quarterback who could dodge the sackmaster, it was Long's teammate.
Number 9, Jason Gesser.
So here's Jason Gesser now, coming out to start the ball game.
The guess. I bet if you ask Mike Price who the most competitive player he's ever coached, he would probably single out Jason Gesser.
A little kid from Hawaii that Mike Price brought over, who turned into one of the great quarterbacks and one of the great leaders in Washington State history.
Gesser gets his pass away to the end zone. Touchdown. Wow.
What did he do but win?
Gesser pumped it, throws it, got him wide open. Touchdown, Cougars.
All you have to do is spend about 30 seconds around him and you understand why his team's won. He's just got this magnetic personality.
His presence has a remarkable impact on this football team.
He kept plays alive with his feet, probably unlike any other Cougar quarterback has been able to. Kept games alive that way and kept kind of hope alive.
Gesser may be known as the Cougar quarterback with the most wins in school history, but he's best remembered for the grit with which he played the game.
Gesser is a tough kid. He's a great competitor. He's wearing an ankle brace on his right ankle, a knee brace on his right knee. The big question now will be how much pain can this courageous young man withstand this afternoon?
Jason Gesser might be the toughest quarterback ever at Washington State.
I remember him playing hurt just all the time.
It's really like the iconic picture of Guess is him beating UCLA on one leg in the Rose Bowl.
There was no way that there was going to be anything to have me come off that field and not play in a UCLA game.
To be able to perform at such a high level with such pain in his right leg, I've never seen anything like it.
The Washington State Cougars are going back to the Rose Bowl.
When you win in the Rose Bowl, to clinch to go to the Rose Bowl, that's one of the ultimate feelings. And to put that rose in your teeth, that's the pinnacle moment.
The picture of Gesser with the rose in his mouth, smiling, hands raised. He's my favorite Cougar football player of all time.
So much of this performance hinged on this young man's right leg. What can you say about him?
I just think he's the greatest.
There's still 8 Cougars to go. See which player split the uprights on our list. You're watching the 12 Greatest. A team's greatness can be hard to measure, but at Washington State, there's no greater achievement than playing in the Rose Bowl game on New Year's Day. 4 Cougar football teams have reached the granddaddy of them all, and each of them had at least one transcendent player. For the 1998 team, it was quarterback Ryan Leaf. In 2003, it was quarterback Jason Gesser. But in 1931, it was a two-way star who helped lead the Cougars to one of their greatest seasons.
Number 8, Turk Edwards.
Turk Edwards was big before football players were big.
While America fought through the Great Depression, the folks on the Palouse found a ray of hope in the Washington State football team and their star player, Turk Edwards.
He was a dominant football player and very worthy to be on this list and very worthy to be inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame some years back.
Playing defensive tackle, Edwards helped the Cougars to a 9-0 record in the 1930 regular season, earning them a berth in the 1931 Rose Bowl game against Alabama. Edwards, along with teammate Mel Hine, became the first Cougars to earn All-American honors, cementing Edwards' spot on the list of Washington State greats. While Turk Edwards had a brief career in the pros, our next Cougar great played 21 years in the NFL, all without missing a single game.
Number 7, Jason Hansen.
And of course, our kicking game is outstanding, and it's in the hands of such a great person and such a great talented athlete as Jason Hansen.
A 62-yard attempt. He got it!
A new Pac-10 record for Jason Hansen, and look at the celebration.
Jason, to this day, has the strongest leg I've ever seen.
He kicked a 62-yard field goal. I remember reading about it and thinking, no, that can't be right. 62-yard field goal, nobody gets a 62-yard field goal.
Jason Hansen, we called him Skippy, just the nicest friggin' person.
Jason Hansen may have been the nicest guy on the field, but he was as competitive as any player.
I remember a game in Las Vegas where in pregame warmups, he had the long snapper line up alongside the UNLV kicker. And then he's another 7-8 yards back, and he's kicking field goals over this kicker's head. It was kind of demoralizing. It was almost like trash talk, a silent trash talk before the game.
Has plenty of distance, and he has just rewritten the NCAA record book.
Hansen earned first-team All-American honors as a freshman in 1988 and still holds records for most field goals made from 40 yards, 50 yards, and beyond.
We've had some good kickers at WSU over the years, but there's nobody like Jason Hansen. He was unreal.
Number 6, Jack Thompson.
One of the top quarterbacks in the country is Jack Thompson of Washington State.
Jack is the godfather of all of us. It goes Jack Thompson, the throwing Samoan, and everybody else is second fiddle.
There's a reason why we call him the Godfather. He's the one that started everything.
Long before Coach Mike Leach's air raid offense landed in Pullman, the Cougars boasted their first aerial showcase in the late 1970s with quarterback Jack Thompson, or as fans like to call him, the throwing Samoan.
The throwing Samoan, like that's got to be one of the greatest nicknames in college sports history.
There he is, the throwing Samoan, born in American Samoa, grew up here in Seattle as a Husky fan, wound up going cross-state to Pullman.
A guy that really had a tremendous arm, could throw the football, and I envied him sometimes at the way he was able to throw the ball over there at Washington State University.
You see all the footage with kind of had the big afro and he's slinging it all over the field. And at the time, the most prolific passer in NCAA history.
While the throwing Samoan's college career ended in 1978, his impact on the Washington State program has endured for generations.
That is the Jack Thompson Cougar fans know and love.
When I was in high school, I was being recruited to Washington State, and all of a sudden our phone rang and said, hey, Drew, hey, it's Jack Thompson, how you doing? A lot of coaches are going to be afraid to coach you because they don't want to screw it up, so they're not going to tell you much. If you really want an accurate assessment of where you are, call me. I'll be watching, and I'll tell you the truth.
He took me under his wing, just like he did numerous other players and other quarterbacks, and guided me to do the right things, act the right way.
Well, just watching how Luke Falk, I mean, he owns this team.
You know, Washington State prides itself on being quarterback U. Jack Thompson is a lot of the reason why we've had this great run at Washington State.
We all tip our caps to him as kind of the godfather of Cougar quarterbacks.
Jack Thompson may be the godfather of Cougar quarterbacks, but he wasn't able to achieve what the next two signal callers did. See where these quarterbacks rank when we come back. In 1978, Washington State quarterback Jack Thompson set a new NCAA mark for passing yards with 7,818. He became the first Cougar quarterback selected in the first round of the NFL draft. While Thompson might have been the first, he was not the last, as Washington State would go on to become a mecca for great quarterbacks. From Drew Bledsoe to Jason Gesser to Luke Falk, Pullman has become a hotbed for great passers. But of all these players, none possessed as much raw talent as our number 5 selection. A 6'5" giant from Montana with a cannon arm.
Number 5, Ryan Leaf.
And big Ryan Leaf of Washington State will make their walk to the corral this afternoon.
Expectations for me were pretty high, for myself.
At the line. Some pressure from Salavea. Throws on the run in the end zone. Touchdown!
He was not just a quarterback, but he was a physical specimen. He was a big, strong, tough kid from Montana.
Ryan Leaf is 240 pounds. He's more like a linebacker. And at times he looks for people to hit.
Leaf was the one guy where you sit there and you're like, hold on, he's 6'5", 260? and he can move like that in the pocket, and with a flick of a wrist get the ball downfield.
And that ball was perfectly thrown.
I'd run the football a lot. I'd have guys hanging on me when I'd throw the football. Very confrontational with the opponent.
You talk about quarterbacks being stoic and not letting you see their emotions, not this guy.
He was not a conventional leader. He had a lot of brass to him, and sometimes even upset his teammates, I know, but I think that kind of brought out the best in him.
In his junior year, Leaf threw for a Pac-10 record 33 touchdowns and led the Cougars to their first Rose Bowl game appearance since 1931. Ryan Leaf's Washington State career was picture perfect. Unfortunately, his trials and tribulations after college would overshadow the quarterback for years.
When he went to the National Football League, he was fearless. He expected to be treated like he was at Washington State. First day, I'm the guy. And in the NFL, that sometimes didn't work for Ryan.
What have you been doing and a chance to see you back in the NFL?
No, you won't see me back in the NFL, but I'll be to plenty of these games to root on my coach and Washington State, because they're just doing a tremendous job.
It's not necessary what other people think of me as any of my business, but it's important to try to be a better person. I'm a Cougar, and I'll always be a Cougar, no matter what.
Number 4, Mike Utley.
Mike was one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen in my life when he came on campus. Mike blocked the sun out. And when you lined up against him, by the end of the day, you knew he didn't like you at all.
Mike Utley may not have warmed the hearts of those he played against, but the 6'6" guard quickly endeared himself to Cougar fans. In 1988, Utley led the Cougars to their first bowl victory in 72 years, earning All-American honors along the way.
Great player, fabulous heart, always gave 110%.
Utley's career took a tragic turn, however, in the NFL. During a game against the Los Angeles Rams in November 1991, Utley was paralyzed from the chest down. Since that day, Utley has worked tirelessly through his foundation to raise money for medical breakthroughs in spinal cord injuries.
He's one of these guys, you look at his circumstances, you're like, yeah, that guy has every excuse to be mad at the world. But when you're around him, it's the opposite.
He is the same wonderful individual he was when he was playing for the Cougars and in the NFL, and really works very hard through his foundation to help others, and certainly belongs on this list by all means.
Being a part of a group of men that gave 100% of themselves every play and represent Washington State Cougars, and honestly say, I enjoyed the game of football.
Number 3, Drew Bledsoe.
Drew Bledsoe, lanky fellow from Walla Walla, Washington, comes out leading the Pac-10 in total offense.
Drew Bledsoe was my hero. I had the poster on my wall. You know, I looked up to him. He was a big reason why I went to Washington State.
Bledsoe again looking for the out pattern, looking downfield, pointed, touchdown, Cougars!
When I was being recruited by Mike Price, one of the things that he said that really resonated with me was, look, you know, you can go to one of these football factories and you can just be another cog in the machine, or you can come to Pullman and we can really change things.
Bledsoe time, he'll fake it, he'll run it, touchdown Washington State. Boy, what a pump fake by Drew Bledsoe.
Of course, everybody always talks about the Snow Bowl game, and that's the 92 Apple Cup at Martin Stadium.
And hi, everybody, and welcome to Pullman, Washington.
It's 31 degrees, the wind is swirling, but nothing has stopped Drew Bledsoe.
We woke up that morning and we saw the snow starting to fly around. Like, okay, this changes everything.
2nd down and 9. Still has the football after the play fake, going into the end zone. Wants Davis or Bobo. Touchdown, Washington State. Philip Bobo with the catch.
I just start sprinting down the field and end up diving into the snow pile. You know, we were like a bunch of kids at recess. It was really fun.
I think I knocked a piece of the ceiling out when I jumped up in joy because the Cougars were going to go on and win an Apple Cup.
Even as good as he was that year, I don't know if Coug fans really believed that their guy could be the #1 pick in the NFL draft. And there he goes to the Patriots, #1 overall.
Bledsoe would go on to enjoy a 14-year career in the NFL. helping lead the New England Patriots to their first championship season and elevating Washington State's position on the college football landscape.
If I'm remembered for anything at Washington State, I'm just proud to be a part of those teams that started an era of excellence for over a decade.
We're down to our final two Cougar greats. Who will take home the title of the greatest Washington State football player of all time? Our journey to find the greatest Washington State football players has almost reached its end. But before we unveil our final two picks, let's take a look back at the other Cougar greats who made our countdown.
We called him the Ghost, right? Because nobody could touch him.
Goddard was a three-time All-American quarterback.
Chase dropped by Long. Ryan Long just man against boy there.
Gesser is a tough kid. He's a great competitor.
I just think he's the greatest.
Turk Edwards was big before football players were big.
62-yard attempt. A new Pac-10 record for Jason Hansen.
There he is, the throwing Samoan.
Jack is the godfather of all of us.
And Big Ryan leads for Washington State.
Hold on, he's 6'5", 260, and he can move like that.
Mike was one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen in my life. Mike blocked the sun out.
Drew Bledsoe from Walla Walla, Washington.
Going into the end zone. Touchdown, Washington State.
Those are certainly some legendary Cougars, exceeded only by our final two contenders.
Number 2, Mel Hein.
Mr. Indestructible. Mel Hein was the center on Washington State's 1931 Rose Bowl team that went undefeated in the regular season.
A lot of people believe him to be the first professional athlete from the state of Washington. As a center, he was the first guy to have his jersey retired by WSU, and he was also the 1938 NFL MVP. As a center, that's unheard of, right?
In addition to leading the football team to a 19-3 record over 2 seasons, Hein was also a star on the Washington State basketball team.
Even today, his name is synonymous with Washington State football. He, of course, deserves to be on this list as a charter member of it.
Mel Hein was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 1954 and then became one of the first inductees into the NFL Hall of Fame in 1963, putting an exclamation point on his status as one of the most decorated Cougars ever. Yet, Mel Hein does not earn the distinction as the greatest Washington State football player of all time. That title goes to a running back who rewrote the record books and electrified the Palouse with his supreme talent.
Number 1, Ruben Mays.
I remember Coach Jim Walden talking about somebody just sent him this grainy tape of some kid up in Saskatchewan. Hey, maybe you should check this guy out.
He had tremendous balance, could cut back wonderfully, and of course fabulous speed. And once he got in the open field and in space, one-on-one, pretty much into the end zone.
Of course, he's part of the big RPM, is what they call it.
Rippin, Porter, and Mays.
Rippin and Porter and Mays. When I was in late junior high and high school, they were all the rage.
The RPM trio may have been all the rage on the Palouse, but when it came to offensive production, everything started and ended with Ruben Mays.
Same play. And Mays makes the nice catch again.
I was in Autzen Stadium down at the University of Oregon when Ruben set the single-game rushing record. Nobody could get close to him that whole afternoon.
That was the first time that I really kind of started to pay attention to the Cougs, even though I grew up in a Husky family. It's like, oh, there's something happening up there in Pullman.
Mays became the first Cougar to earn consensus All-American honors, was the 1986 NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, and was eventually elected into the College Football Hall of Fame in 2008.
He understands the importance of what being a Cougar is.
I don't know if there's a classier guy that's ever walked the planet, so he's just a great representative for the Cougs.
I've learned a lot here at Washington State University to be in a position where you are recognized by your peers. To be at this level in college football is a tremendous honor.
Ruben Mays sprints away with the title of the greatest Cougar football player of all time. But if history tells us anything, there's likely another Cougar great who is yet to emerge. Who will that be? Only time will tell.